RadarOnline.com has exclusively learned that the shocking decision by powerhouse defense attorney Alan Jackson to withdraw from Nick Reiner's murder case appears to come down to one blunt reality: money. During what was supposed to be Nick Reiner's arraignment for the murders of his father, Rob Reiner, and mother, Michelle Singer Reiner, Jackson stunned the courtroom by announcing he was stepping away from the defense. The sudden move immediately sent shockwaves through the case, raising serious questions about what changed behind the scenes and why one of the most expensive lawyers in America walked away. Nick Reiner's arraignment has now been pushed back to February 23rd, and with Jackson officially off the case, Reiner is expected to move forward with a public defender. Outside the courthouse, Jackson avoided giving a direct explanation for his withdrawal. He acknowledged the decision publicly, stating that circumstances beyond control made it impossible to continue representing Nick.
Good morning. As you know, my name is Alan Jackson. This morning, I had to withdraw as Nick Reiner's counsel. Circumstances beyond our control, but more importantly, circumstances beyond Nick's control, have dictated that, sadly, it's made it impossible for us to continue our representation of Nick. I'm legally and I'm ethically prohibited from explaining all the reasons why. I know that's a question on everybody's mind. We expect the public defender to step in. They've already been appointed and very capably protect Nick Reiner's interests as he moves forward through the system. But be clear, be very, very clear about this. My team and I remain deeply, deeply committed to Nick Reiner and to his best interests. In fact, we know, we're not just convinced, we know that the legal process will reveal the true facts of the circumstances surrounding this case, Nick's case. You know, a lot's been printed of late, over the last 3 weeks. A lot has been printed about Nick, printed about his family, printed about the circumstances. Speculation is in print. On December 15th, in the early morning hours, I was in New York at the time, and I got a call. Me and my team, we dropped everything. And for the last 3 weeks, we have devoted literally every waking hour to protecting Nick and his interests. We've investigated this matter top to bottom, back to front. What we've learned, and you can take this to the bank, is that pursuant to the laws of this state, pursuant to the law in California, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder. Print that. Print that. We wish him the very, very best moving forward. And that's all I have today.
According to Jonathan Levoritz, a New York-based attorney and founder of the Levoritz law firm, those so-called circumstances almost always point to finances. Levoritz explained that Alan Jackson's services typically cost around $1 million and can easily climb into the seven-figure range. Once it became clear that Nick Reiner could not pay, the incentive to stay vanished. Levoritz bluntly added that Jackson had already gained headlines and exposure, and with this shaping up to be a losing case, it made sense to stop the bleeding and walk away. Levoritz went even further, suggesting that Jackson had little reason to remain attached to a case with no financial upside and overwhelming risk. His assessment painted a harsh picture, implying that once payment was off the table, so was loyalty. In his words, it was better to let Nick Reiner sink on his own than continue representing a client who could not fund the defense and offered no path to victory. Despite stepping down, Jackson made it clear he was not abandoning Nick entirely. He emphasized that legal and ethical boundaries prevented him from explaining all the reasons behind the withdrawal. Still, he insisted that the public defender now assigned would carefully protect Nick Reiner's interests as the case moves forward. Jackson also maintained that the legal process would ultimately reveal the true facts surrounding the case, and reiterated his belief that Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder under California law. This dramatic shift followed Nick Reiner's first court appearance on December 17, 2025, just one day after he was formally charged with killing his parents. At that time, Jackson requested a delay in the arraignment, citing the complexity and seriousness of the case and the need for a deeper review. With Jackson now gone, that delay has turned into a full change of counsel. Nick Reiner will now be represented by Kimberly Green, a public defender with nearly 20 years of experience. The judge approved the switch and rescheduled the arraignment for February 23rd. In court, Nick appeared subdued, dressed in a brown suit, offering only a quiet agreement to the delay. Moments later, he was escorted out of the courtroom and returned to jail, where he remains without bail. With $1 million lawyer gone, payment issues exposed, and the defense now in public hands, the case against Nick Reiner has entered a far more precarious phase. What began with star power and elite legal muscle has shifted into something far grimmer. And as the court date approaches, one thing is certain: the safety net is gone, and Nick Reiner now faces the legal system alone.